All right, today we're diving into a seriously high-stakes drama from the book of Genesis. We're talking about a story that's got everything: fear, a really clever deception, a divine warning that's frankly terrifying, and a resolution you might not see coming. But what's really at the heart of it is a tricky question about truth itself. So here it is, the big moral puzzle of this whole story. We're going to look at a situation where someone says something that's technically true, but it's also designed to deceive. And the stakes? Literally life and death. So keep that question in your head as we walk through this.
Okay, so here's how we're going to break it all down. First, the dangerous deception. Then, a royal nightmare. After that, the big confrontation, followed by Abraham's justification for what he did. And finally, we'll see how it all gets wrapped up with restitution and healing.
All right, let's jump right in. So our story kicks off with the patriarch Abraham. He's traveling south, and he ends up settling as a foreigner in this kingdom called Gerar. And you can imagine, right? As the new guy in town, he's feeling pretty vulnerable, maybe a little exposed. So Abraham makes this huge assumption about the locals. He basically thinks, you know what? These people don't fear God. He's convinced they'd be willing to kill him just to take his wife, Sarah, who's known to be very beautiful. And that fear, well, it pushes him to come up with a survival plan.
And here's the plan. It's simple, but it's a bombshell. He decides he's not going to introduce Sarah as his wife. Instead, he tells everyone, "She is my sister." This is his big preemptive strike, right? His way of trying to protect himself from this danger he's sure is coming.
And you know what? At first, it seems like Abraham's fear was on the money. The king of Gerar, a guy named Abimelech, hears there's this beautiful, unmarried woman in his kingdom. And as a king could do back then, he just sends for her, takes her right into his palace. So Abraham's plan kind of worked, except it just created a way bigger problem.
Okay, so this is where the story really takes a sharp turn. The whole thing goes from a human deception to a full-blown divine emergency. The king, Abimelech, he goes to bed that night totally oblivious to the real situation.
And we're not talking about some subtle hint or a weird feeling he gets. No, this is a direct and, frankly, a terrifying intervention. God comes to Abimelech in a dream to stop him from crossing a line he doesn't even know exists.
And the warning God gives him, it's just shockingly blunt. There's no room for negotiation. The message is simple and it's horrifying. Behold, you are a dead man. Just like that. The judgment is instant. And it's for something Abimelech thought was perfectly fine to do. Now Abimelech is completely stunned, right? He hasn't even laid a hand on Sarah. So he immediately starts defending himself to God. He's like, wait a minute, I'm the innocent one here. I was lied to. He even pushes back on God's sense of justice, asking, Lord, are you really going to destroy a righteous nation over this? And this is the heart of his argument. He's saying, I did this with integrity of my heart and innocence of my hands. He's insisting he acted in totally good faith, just based on what he was told by Abraham and Sarah. As far as he's concerned, he's done nothing wrong. And here's the wild part. God actually agrees with him. God says, yeah, I know you did this with a clear conscience. In fact, I'm the one who stopped you from sinning against me. But here's the thing. Being innocent doesn't change the command. It's absolute. Return her to her husband, who, by the way, is a prophet. And if you don't, you and your entire household will die. Period.
So, you can probably guess what happens next. The next morning, Abimelech does not hit the snooze button. He wakes up completely shaken and immediately jumps into action. He's got to stop this divine disaster from happening.
First thing he does, he calls all his servants, his whole court, and tells them exactly what happened in that dream. And just like that, the king's private terror becomes this massive wave of fear that washes over the whole palace. They all realize they are in serious, serious danger, all because of this stranger, Abraham.
And this just shows you the king's righteous anger perfectly. He calls for Abraham and confronts him head on. Think about it. To God, he was pleading, asking, will you slay a righteous nation? But to Abraham, it's an accusation. What have you done to us? He's furious because he believes Abraham's lie almost brought down this huge sin on him and his entire kingdom for absolutely no good reason.
So now, all eyes are on Abraham. He's on the spot. The terrified king is demanding an explanation. Why in the world did you do this? Why did you put my entire kingdom at risk with this lie? And his answer is, well, it's fascinating. It's got a few different layers. So let's break it down. First, he basically says, I was scared. I just assumed you guys were godless and would kill me for my wife. Then he pulls out the technicality. And besides, she is actually my half-sister. And third, he reveals that this wasn't some spur-of-the-moment thing. It was a pact, a long-standing agreement they had for whenever they traveled. And this brings us right back to that big question we started with, doesn't it? Abraham didn't tell an outright lie. He told a half-truth. He said she is my sister, which was true, but he left out the much, much more important part. She is also my wife. It's a statement that's technically factual but is 100% designed to mislead, and that just makes the ethics of the whole thing incredibly messy.
Okay, so the truth is finally out, and now the story moves into its final act. And what's amazing here is that Abimelech, who is clearly the one who's been wronged, takes these incredible steps to make everything right and, get back on God's good side.
Look at this. Abimelech doesn't just hand Sarah back and say, "We're good," not even close. He showers Abraham with gifts, sheep, oxen, servants. He tells him, "Hey, you can live anywhere you want in my land." And on top of all that, he gives him a huge amount of silver. But it's not what you think. It's for a very specific reason. Yeah, this number, 1,000 shekels of silver, is a really big deal. Abimelech gives this money to Abraham as a covering of the eyes for Sarah. What does that mean? It's basically a public payment to prove her innocence, to vindicate her owner in front of everybody. It was the king's way of saying she has done nothing wrong, and this proves it.
And now the very last piece of the puzzle falls into place. Remember how God told Abimelech that Abraham was a prophet and that he would pray for him? Well, now that Abimelech has done his part, it's Abraham's turn. He prays for the king, and God listens, healing Abimelech's entire household.
And it's here that we finally find out exactly what the affliction was. Turns out, because of the whole situation with Sarah, God had made it so none of the women in Abimelech's household could have children. Abraham's prayer reverses that curse. It's a powerful symbol of life and blessing being completely restored.
So that's where the story leaves us. And it brings up a pretty fascinating question, right? Who is the real protagonist here? Is it Abraham, the chosen prophet of God, who lies because he's afraid? Or is it Abimelech, this so-called pagan king, who, the moment he's corrected by God, acts with total integrity and amazing generosity to fix the mess? The story doesn't really hand us an answer, which kind of forces us to think about what being righteous really means.